Dr. Lorraine Day did something most people have not had the courage to do. When diagnosed with cancer, she decided to heal herself without the aid of the medical community. What makes this story particularly interesting is that she herself is a highly respected orthopedic surgeon. Instead, after 30 years as an agnostic, she turned to belief in an ancient recipe for health from the Old Testament after she learned that the cancer had spread.
And I let them put me to sleep to see if they could get clear margins, which they still could not get. I told them you cannot do a mastectomy, which they recommended, and I said I was not going to do chemo or radiation. Well, the interesting thing is both of my surgeons were personal friends. One was that I knew in college, and the other one was a resident with me at UC San Francisco. And they thought I had lost my mind because I said, I'm not doing chemo, I'm not doing radiation. And they said, why not? And I said, well, chemotherapy is poison. And I said, you and I were both taught that chemotherapy causes cancer. I said, every doctor knows that. The patients don't know that. The patients are all surprised when I say chemotherapy causes cancer. And they'd say, my doctor wouldn't give me something that causes cancer when I already have cancer. And I say, yes, they would, because they don't know what else to do. But by that time, I had found out that there was another way to get well. And I had found that out because people had written to me, showing me that there was a huge cover-up in cancer cures, and I was quite shocked.
This is an incredible story of hope, courage, and a method of healing that she says works. Just ignore the banging of pots and pans in the background. Her assistant Maria was making a vegan lunch for us.
Dr. Lorraine Day. If you've never heard of her, you're probably better off. For reasons of... okay, look. I might get a lot angrier in this particular video than I normally would. Because I take the misinformation involving this particular scam, this particular grift, this particular load of absolute hogwash very personally. Dr. Lorraine Day is, or was, she's deceased now, an actual doctor at one time. An orthopedic surgeon, to be precise. So bones and muscles and things like that. That was her specialty. And she did actually work as a doctor and actually get a medical degree. So we're not dealing with any kind of fraud on that particular front. What we are dealing with is her effectively leaving the medical industry entirely, and the field, to participate in a load of nonsense where she peddled the notion that, in fact, humanity has been hiding the cure for cancer for years. And if you buy my tape, I'll teach you how to cure your cancer, where the regular doctors will just keep you sick, because that's how that works. And, okay, and here's the reason why I'm taking this a little bit personally. I am a cancer survivor. Me, myself. I'm not making that up. I've been in remission for years, so you don't have to worry. But my oncologist saved my life with actual medical science. I recovered and beat cancer because of my doctor. So anytime I hear doctors only want to keep you sick, they want to keep you, I get a little tilted because I would not be breathing right now if I had not sought an actual medical doctor when I got diagnosed with cancer. Alright? I just want to be upfront about this. And remember, she's ortho, not oncologist. She is not a cancer doctor, never was. That was not her specialty. I'm sure she knew plenty about it, but she didn't specialize in it. And her methodology, her big idea for how to cure cancer, because she cured her own cancer. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. This is how she beat it. For realsies, that's what happened. I believe you. Don't worry. Was, of course, through proper diet, fresh air, and God. Listen. Listen. And I say this as a person who believes in a higher power. If you're ever, heaven forbid, if you're ever diagnosed with a serious condition like cancer, let me promise you, God wants you to go see your doctor about that. You can pray to him too. That's your prerogative. That depends on your own personal belief system. I'm not going to tell you how to handle that. Your faith is your own. But I promise you, God would love it, adore it, if you went to a proper medical professional and got legitimate medical advice for how to fight off whatever horrific condition you have wound up with. He doesn't want you to do nothing about it, which is basically what she is suggesting. I mean, she's not suggesting nothing, but her solution isn't a solution and has been proven wrong countless times. Her particular infomercial aired back in 2004, and it was advertising a tape that you could buy. Because that's how we're making money here. Well, she'll tell you the secret for how to cure cancer. She has it, for real. Absolutely 100%. Because the medical industry, they're all corrupt, you see. And they just want to keep people sick with chemo, because chemo just makes you sicker. And yes, chemo does have very nasty side effects. It's true. Also, it has been clinically proven to shrink tumors. That is what chemo does. That's what it's for. And it does work. And there are people who have been on chemo that have recovered from their cancer, because that is the whole point of it. Now, she makes a lot of claims about the organizational medical industry, especially in America. And I'm not going to try to dispute that, because I'll concede that there are a lot of fixes we could make to our current medical industry in America. That probably isn't a question. I think most of us would agree that the system needs improvement. But her point falls apart rather quickly when you consider other countries like Canada with socialized healthcare. Because her whole point is that doctors want to keep you sick because that means the, big pharma, big medical, whatever, makes more money on you. That's the whole grift, you see. But Canada has socialized healthcare, so people don't actually have to pay for it. And I assure you, the government of Canada wants to spend the least amount of money they can get away with on their socialized healthcare services. So it really doesn't apply there, and yet Canadians, whenever they're diagnosed with cancer, also sometimes wind up with chemo. You don't always get chemo if you have cancer, mind you. Cancer is a very vague diagnosis, and it all depends on the stage and what kind of cancer and a whole bunch of other things that an actual oncologist, i.e. not her or me for that matter, could explain to you rather easily. She also claims that, what you have to do in order to fix your cancer is to just go vegan. Okay. You recognize, of course, that vegans do get cancer. That does happen to vegans. It's unfortunate. But just because you have gone full vegan, and if that's your choice, again, I'm not judging you personally, that doesn't mean you are somehow immune to horrific ailments like cancer. You can still get that. That is a thing that can still happen to you, and it probably won't do anything to actually make you better in the event that you get cancer. At all. But she didn't start out calling out cancer. Oh no. See, she stopped practicing in 1994 when it came to being a doctor, and that was when she started calling out the medical industry because she was convinced they were hiding the cure for AIDS. AIDS is no longer a big thing. By 2004 it had kind of fallen out of favor in the mass media, but cancer was still big, so she's gonna start focusing on that. Selling a tape called Cancer Doesn't Scare Me Anymore, when it absolutely should. Cancer is very scary. You are quickly reminded of your own mortal existence, speaking from experience on that. There's also evidence that, in terms of fixing her own cancer, it actually was taken care of surgically. It's believed that the tumor in question may have been removed that way. She claims that she's seen thousands of her own patients die from the treatment that the medical industry gives them, which... Okay, a real talk for a second. If you have seen thousands of your own patients die from the treatment you gave them, I believe that suggests, more so than anything else, that you're actually just a really bad doctor. The worst, in fact. Most doctors don't see thousands of their own patients die from the treatments. That's not normal. I think this videotape you're peddling may have caused potentially thousands of deaths from people believing you, going full vegan, and then dying of otherwise very treatable cancer. She tries to rail against chemotherapy, especially, claiming that it's a poison, which, yeah, it's a cancer cell, is the whole point. But it does, again, there are nasty side effects. Chemo is not a perfect solution, but it often is the best course of action, especially in severe cases. She cites an actual study to prove her claim, mind you. She points out that radiation and chemo actually causes secondary cancers, and that just keeps you sick, keeps coming back for more. Also, no, not exactly. The very study she herself cites here involved 182 children and adolescents who were seen at the Roswell Park Cancer Institute in Buffalo, New York. Those children had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and naturally they were treated with a course of radiation and chemo. Hodgkin's, mind you, is 100% fatal. You can't survive it without proper treatment. And yes, 28 of the 182 did develop a secondary cancer later in life. Also, they would have been dead way friggin' sooner had they not been treated at all. And there wasn't necessarily a guarantee the secondary cancers were related to the chemo or the radiation. Yeah, it's possible, but also it could have been something else. There's a whole bunch of different causes for cancers. Again, it's a very vague term. That's why finding a one-stop shop cure for cancer is very difficult, to the point of being impossible. Every single cancer needs to be treated slightly differently. That's why there's a whole specialty field on it, oncology, because of how complex things get. There's a very, very major difference between something like skin cancer and leukemia. It's the same thing in principle, but it also absolutely is not. She goes on to say that we still haven't found a cure for cancer, which isn't quite correct. See, technically speaking, some forms of cancer are very curable, especially if caught early. In my case, I don't want to tell you what kind of cancer I had. Okay, it's not your business. But I will say I was lucky and caught mine very early, and mine was super-de-duper curable. Hence why I'm not dead. She even says that chemotherapy and radiation just flat out doesn't work at all against cancer, which is absolutely outrageous. That is just flat out wrong. I guarantee there are at least a handful of people watching this video right now that will gladly appear in the comments, you know who you are, and point out that, hey, I had chemo and radiation to fix my cancer, and it worked. There are numerous, thousands, possibly millions of cases where that treatment was proven to be effective. It has repeatedly been proven to be effective against cancer cells. Strenuous and with nasty side effects? Yes, that is absolutely correct. Chemo is something no rational doctor wants to give to somebody unless they absolutely have to, but it often is the only option, especially for late-stage cancers. She claims that cancer only happens because of the way we're eating and the way we're living, and it's only partially true. True, some cancers can be caused by certain factors. How you treat your body. I mean, for example, if you are a pack-a-day smoker, yeah, you're much more likely to get lung cancer later in life than someone who isn't. But also there are other cancers that just kind of happen, depending on genetics or other things you may not even be aware of. Just because you have a perfected vegan diet and you exercise regularly and everything's great and wonderful does not, again, does not mean that you are somehow immune from possibly getting cancer. And furthermore, she goes on to say that, hey, if you follow my plan, my diet, and lifestyle modification, you'll reverse all this damage. You'll fix the cancer. It'll just magically poof out of existence because you ate broccoli. No, that is not how that works. This is an exceedingly irresponsible and dangerous thing to peddle because you are working to convince people to stop trusting actual medical doctors who are trained in the science behind these particular diseases and know how they work and how to fix them. The deeply ironic part about this whole thing is that by peddling this, by selling it, she, in fact, is profiting off of sick people, dying people, far more than the actual medical industry is. Because at least the actual medical industry, as expensive as it can get, generally speaking, will offer solutions to your ailments that actually work. It's probably also worth mentioning that Dr. Day here has refused to release medical reports substantiating a lot of her claims regarding exactly how her particular case of cancer progressed or any other associated issues involving it. Now, you could argue that's her right to privacy, but if you're making some pretty sweeping allegations regarding the whole of the medical industry, it's a little suspicious that you won't confirm your own story, you know, on your side of the fence here. If you were telling the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God, it shouldn't be a problem. And yet it is. Her 10-step program, mind you, didn't just consist of a vegan diet and getting fresh air and praying. Oh, no. She had other really great ideas. You have to stop working entirely. You weren't allowed to go to work. Which is a little unreasonable for most people, I think. Are you suggesting that your job is giving you cancer? Listen, unless your job is working in Chernobyl, I'm not sure that's generally applicable to the situation. I mean, I don't think the clerk at McDonald's is more predisposed to cancer than, say, me. So, you know, I feel like that's a bit odd. Also, you have to give up watching commercial television. Exactly what commercial television has to do with anything involving cancer, I don't know. But that's what she says. Don't watch any TV. Don't do it. The TV is a cancer box. It's a giant tumor in your living room, you fools! And for further evidence that she just doesn't know what the heck she's talking about, she goes on to make the outrageous claim that you can't get cancer unless your immune system is somehow depressed. No. 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 That's not true. And you'd think that the woman explaining that the government was hiding all things related to AIDS back in the 90s would have a pretty basic understanding that people with HIV, who, as a result of that virus, have a severely compromised immune system, are no more predisposed to cancer than regular people. They can develop a whole bunch of other issues. That's how it kills you. You die from relatively common infections because you don't have an immune system left to fight it off. That's how that disease works. But the cancer, not really. No, not really a link there. Not a strong one anyway. Again, I'm not an oncologist. I'm not a medical professional. But the actual medical professional in the room right now is behaving like an utter moron, so I have to be the one to say no. She says the cause of all diseases, all of them, every single disease out there, is related to malnutrition, dehydration, and stress. That's it. Now, it is fair to say that all three of those things can cause certain conditions. It varies quite a bit, but I mean, there's some relation there. It's bad to be malnourished or dehydrated. At least she's telling you to eat, unlike somebody that we talked about before. So, I mean, you know, we're making progress in some ways, but also, what about things like viruses and bacteria? Those don't seem to really care about. I mean, I guess those three things can make you more susceptible to viruses and bacteria, but they're not the causes. You know? Did you also know that cancerous tumors grow twice as fast if you're breathing indoor air as if you're breathing outdoor air? Yeah, that's what Dr. Day says. So don't you worry yourself, my LA listeners. Please exit your nice air-conditioned apartments and go out and breathe in your amazing smog-infested air. It's much better for you. I have it on good authority. Yeah, there's also nothing in the scientific medical literature that suggests that indoor air versus outdoor air makes any notable difference when it comes to cancer cell growth. She even makes the outrageous claim that drugs don't cure any diseases. Okay, Kevin Trudeau, are antibiotics a joke to you? Because I've been sick plenty of times where the doctor prescribed me antibiotics, and the antibiotics usually work. They're actually pretty good against certain infections. So I think the idea that drugs don't help in a lot of situations is utter hogwash. And again, she keeps pushing the idea to just rely on God and do her 10-step program. Also, after you buy it, of course. And you know, you'll be fine. The cancer will be magically whisked away. And look, faith and a good diet and healthy life choices can help you avoid disease. I mean, it can help you feel better in general. It's not that getting exercise and fresh air and all that stuff is necessarily bad. But also to suggest that it is a cure-all to one of the most lethal diseases on the planet that humanity has ever had to deal with, cancer, is utterly ridiculous and, again, exceedingly irresponsible and dangerous. If you listen to Dr. Lorraine Day's advice, you are literally signing your own death certificate, because this will not help you. And again, she didn't even start with cancer. She even published a book called AIDS, What the Government Isn't Telling You. Oh, what they don't want you to... It's just Trudeau again, except she is an actual doctor, so you'd think she'd know better. But as far as I'm able to tell, she never got in any kind of major trouble over any of this, despite how wildly irresponsible all of it was. Oh, and I haven't mentioned this up until now, but I will now. She was a Holocaust denier. Yeah, really. And a public supporter of actual neo-Nazi Ernst Zundel.
GI Robot is detecting unease. Could he be, GI Robot asks, in fear of being discovered as Nazi scum?
So in case you thought maybe she's just, some wacky lady who has some stupid ideas about medicine, we can just ignore her. No, she's actually just the worst kind of person. She was awful. Awful human being. Absolutely horrible. And you'd think a woman of God might know better than to try to deny one of the most horrific mass genocides of literally God's chosen people, which is specified in the Bible, which you directly reference multiple times, but apparently not. She passed away on November 10th, 2023 at the age of 87. And I think we can all appreciate the fact she's no longer around to be awful. I don't like speaking ill of the dead, but I draw the line on that when it comes to that political party, that particular fixation, or anyone that tries to deny the Holocaust. Don't do that. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.